All right. I'm asking people what their life is like. What do they do? How do they serve? Most of us can't fathom what it's like to be part of royalty. What is that like? How do you use that to serve other people?
Let me start by saying that Bob asked me to wear this today. And I find myself every time I meet him, I simply can't say no to him. And let me ask you, how many of you find yourself in the same position? Can you say no to Bob? But coming from a royal family is pretty much like coming from any other family. You have parents, you have siblings, you have duties, you have obligations, you have rights. And presumably, within that royal context, the duties outweigh the privileges. Because even though privilege is part and parcel of growing in a royal family, nonetheless, that is not a license to simply acquisition of more privilege, but rather a push and an urge to do more in terms of duty. And that duty is generally service to your community, and then your nation, and then to mankind. This is the way that I've been brought up in my home. And I remember the late King Faisal, my late father and my late mother, urging us as children not just to be humble, but also to excel in whatever we do. Because by excelling, we seem to be paying back for the privileges that we may have acquired being born in such a position. And it continues from there. When Shamil was talking earlier about young people and how what he is doing is conveying, for example, what Bob does when there is someone else here doing something else to our part of the world. That's a huge responsibility. Overcoming these divides is one of the important elements of service to the community, to the nation, and to mankind. And one must keep in mind that inasmuch as you have your stereotypes about us, we also have our stereotypes about you. So these meetings that Bob and others, hopefully more like him, can bring together, hopefully will work to overcome these stereotypes.
Now, I'm curious, you said something, you sparked something in my mind. What are some of the stereotypes Muslim and Middle Eastern people have about Americans? I'm just curious, and Christians.
Yes, of course.
And evangelicals, let's even get more specific. How do they see us? Be honest.
I am, hopefully, being honest. I wouldn't try to be anything else with you, Bob.
Thank you.
Evangelicals, first of all, many people in our part of the world know so little about evangelicals. Even the name evangelicals, what does it mean? That is something that many of us don't know. Let alone the methods and the ideas. I'll tell you, last night, the singing in this audience, something I was telling Shamil earlier, to someone coming from my background, completely alien in a faith-based exercise that you would have singing of this type. Now, since I've seen American movies and practically spent a third of my life in your country, I've had that experience from other places and venues, whether on television, the movies, even the school that I went to, which was a Protestant school, but at that time, in the mid-60s, it was a school that insisted that we go to chapel service every morning as students. And then we had Sunday chapel service. So, but for someone from Saudi Arabia, that might sound heretical, you know, to go to church and participate in a service with readings from the Bible and sounding like preaching, if you like, or converting. But when you get down to it, we all do that. In in mosques, when a preacher comes up and speaks, he wants to show that what he is speaking about is the way that it should be. And going back to the issue of stereotypes, evangelicals are not very popular in the Arab world for two reasons. One is that many in the Arab and Muslim countries, evangelical preaching, in many times, particularly in the past, has come with a message: you either take it or else, from us. And the other thing, of course, as Mr. Mikhail, I think his name was, yesterday, was talking about the issue of Palestine and Israel interferes into the picture of evangelicals, where particularly in this country, many of these evangelical preachers and congregations seem to have already decided who is right and who is wrong in our part of the world. So that is a picture of evangelicals as best as I can describe it. But the more people, I think, will get to know a congregation like yours and seeing as to how give and take is the instigator of better understanding, I think people will come around to say, well, evangelicals may have something to show for the rest of us. Because you take initiative. And this is what I said the other day about Bob. He takes the lead in bringing these things together. And I'm sure many of you pastors here, when you go back to your communities, you will be taking the lead as well in talking about these sensitive issues, which is good. We need more of that in our part of the world. We have clerics and religious leaders and so on who would not either take the lead or even make the gesture of opening their arms or their hearts to others. And that is why when King Abdullah launched his dialogue of religions and cultures 2 years ago from the city of Mecca, the first step he did was to call for all Muslim denominations to come to the holy city of Mecca to discuss the issue, how to approach other religions and other cultures. And we had all of the subdivisions of Islamic Sunnah and Shia meeting in the holy city of Mecca. And they agreed with him that we must extend our hands to others. So he took that message to Madrid, where the King of Spain hosted a meeting that brought all the subdivisions of religions and cultures in the world, whether religions of the book, Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, or the non-book religions, Buddhism, Hinduism, Shintoism, and even the subdivisions of those. I know, as you know, there are many ways to each of those religions. And they met in Spain and supported the King's call. And then he took that message to the United Nations General Assembly meeting that was specially called to discuss this issue in November 2008, just after your elections. And more than 65 heads of state and prime ministers attended that conference at the General Assembly to look at this issue of bringing people together and religions and cultures together. And they supported that call. And what has come out of it is the Secretariat General to lead that call into action, rather than to leave it simply as rhetorical expression of goodwill and happiness for everyone. Doing things on the ground. That's what has to be done. Going, like your Reverend, Bob, he goes to Afghanistan and he builds schools there. Or he goes to Gaza, brings medicines and shelter and other things like that. That's what we need to do as people who have faith in God. That's a duty. And it is also, in this case, a privilege.
Your Highness, we're talking about engaging and making a difference. And sometimes just being present is a big thing. Just being present, being there. A lot of people say, you know, Bob, must take a lot of courage, bring people together, not that big of a deal. But I look at you, there's a lot of complexity to Saudi Arabia. Since you talked to me, I've been reading books about the history, the government, how it was all put together. the religious issues, the political issues,